Hi, everybody. I'm so pleased to welcome you to Personality with a capital P. Oops, sorry, I'm still letting people into the waiting room. Maybe I'll just wait until more people come. One second.
Kate, I can continue to let people in if you want to
Okay, that's great.
keep going.
Great. Hi, everybody. I'm so pleased to welcome you to Personality with a capital P, Infusing Brand Personality into Your Work, presented by our very own Michael Gartzma. Before I jump into introducing Michael, I'll take a second just to introduce myself. I'm Kate McGowan, and I am your host today. My archetype is the adventurous and caring advisor, and I'm currently based in Austin, Texas. I'm a writer and senior SEO and content strategist in the web division of Carnegie. I've worked here for about 2.5 years now. And this conference is just the embodiment of all the innovation and creativity and expertise that I've witnessed across all these divisions that we have. So I'm so grateful to be here. Michael Gartzma, who is our amazing presenter today, he's our creative director in the creative division. If you haven't met him yet, he's based in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and he's actually celebrating his 6-year anniversary here at Carnegie this week. So everyone congratulate him for that. A bit about his role as creative director in the creative division. It involves leveraging his years of wordsmithing and creative content experience to lead a team of writers, designers, multimedia professionals to develop and execute creative marketing solutions across print, web, digital, and multimedia projects in the creative space. So one of the most exciting things for me today is that even though I work over in the web division and Michael heads up his team in the creative division, we both use Carnegie's proprietary personality system in our work. So I'm so stoked to allow him to get started on his talk today, sharing some of the strategies and tips for incorporating the personality of our clients into all facets of what we do here at Carnegie. So with that being said, I'm going to pass it off to Michael now to get started. If you have questions throughout the talk, feel free to put them in the chat and we'll try to get to answer them all at the end. So go ahead and take it away, Michael. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Kate. Thanks for being here, everyone, and choosing not to be at Gary's session. I really feel honored that you chose me over him. I think that really reflects how important I am around here. So I have a lot of slides to get through. As some of you can attest, I tend to talk a lot when I'm presenting anything. So I will do my best to get through this in 30 minutes and maybe even leave some time for questions. If I don't leave time for questions, feel free to Slack me questions later about any of this. One of the challenges that I had in prepping for this is across the company, we all have very different levels of experience and expertise with Carnegie's personality model when it comes to creative. And so some of this is going to feel a little basic to some of you. Some of it might be a little over some of your heads. I'm hoping that everyone can still walk away with something valuable out of this that you didn't know before, didn't think about before, when it comes to applying personality to your own creative work as we're working for clients. I'm going to walk through why personality exists, what it equips us to do, and then I'm going to look at some of the foundational tools that exist already for us internally and how we should best use them in our work. Hopefully you're aware of most of them, but if not, that should be pretty eye-opening. Even if you are aware of them, hopefully I can highlight some ways that we can use them better than we're using them right now. So our agenda for today, we're going to start with the J. Crew gingham shirt problem. We're going to get into the power of personality. We're going to look at some foundational pieces of where to start applying personality. I'm going to apply or give you some tidbits of wisdom from the experts who know even more than me about applying personality to creative because they do it every single day. And then I'll leave a little time for Q&A at the end. So to begin, the J. Crew gingham shirt problem, or more specifically, the blue J. Crew gingham shirt problem. Now, if any of you are millennials or know millennials or have met a millennial in the last 15 years, you probably recognize this shirt. This is the blue J. Crew gingham shirt. So why is this shirt a problem? It's a fine looking shirt. It's inoffensive. You've probably seen it everywhere. Or at least, if you're my age, you have seen it everywhere. Well, the problem is that you've seen it everywhere. This shirt, for a long period of time, became the default shirt of every man in every city in the United States who wasn't sure how to dress because it's inoffensive. It was seen everywhere. If you weren't sure, how do I up my fashion game? You looked around and like, well, lots of guys are wearing this gingham shirt. I am fine with that. That looks okay. I'm going to wear a gingham shirt. So you started to see it everywhere. There is even an Instagram account dedicated to tracking the gingham shirt in New York City and how everyone is wearing it everywhere all the time, including myself at this wedding in 2012. I believe I own 2 copies of this shirt that probably sit still in my closet somewhere. Now, why do I bring up a gingham shirt as a problem, as a safe, albeit boring and too repetitive fashion choice? Well, because I think that it illustrates a problem that we have in higher ed marketing communication. It's not a gingham shirt problem. We might call it the 3 under a tree problem, or what we now call it internally in the creative team, the paths and backpacks problem. So just like that gingham shirt, you may recognize some of these images seen in college marketing materials near you over and over and over again. What do we see? 6 people walking down a path with backpacks. 1 person walking down a path with a backpack. 3 people walking down a path with a backpack. 30 people under some trees in the commons lawn. 5 people under some trees on the commons lawn. 3 people under a tree on the commons lawn. Here, we've really broken the mold. We have 4 people with backpacks walking down not a path, but a hallway. What this has become is seemingly an arms race of backpacks and paths. Who has the most beautiful paths? Who has the most backpacks? Is that really the story that we want to tell in higher ed? No, but it is the story that is being told because, much like a gingham shirt, it's inoffensive. It's broadly appealing. And when schools look around and wonder, what are other schools doing? That's what they see and decide, well, that doesn't seem offensive. Those look like nice pictures. We should use pictures like that. And so we get view books and print pieces and digital ads and emails full of paths and backpacks and 3 people under a tree. But this is also not limited to pictures. We do the same thing in copy. How about this idea of offering students support? Here are just a few samples that I grabbed from how schools are telling this story. We offer a wide range of support services to help our students succeed. We prioritize supporting our students through various programs. Our dedicated staff is here to support students in all aspects. We provide extensive support to ensure our students thrive. We are committed to supporting students from all backgrounds. Our comprehensive support network is designed to assist students. We offer a range of student support services and to help students achieve their goals and maintain well-being. Or what about student to faculty ratio? We maintain a low student to faculty ratio to ensure personalized attention. With a low student to faculty ratio, we offer students the opportunity to engage closely with professors. We boast a favorable student to faculty ratio, fostering learning. Our commitment to a low student to faculty ratio facilitates meaningful interactions over and over and over again. Or the latest trend that I have seen is our latest alumni survey reveals that 92% of our graduates secured employment within 6 months of graduation. 95% of our graduates are employed or pursuing further education within 1 year. 97% of our alumni report being employed in their desired field within 6 months. 94% of graduates secure employment or continue their education within 3 months. 91% of recent alumni reporting employment in their chosen field within 6 months. 93% are employed in their field of study within 6 months. Over and over and over again. Paths and backpacks and 3 under a tree and gingham shirts and the exact same stats and words and language over and over again. None of this is bad on its own, but none of it says anything to our students. And that is the power of personality. Because as Eric just said in the chat, we are drowning in a sea of beige. And our ultimate goal here at Carnegie and on behalf of our clients is to foster human connection. And we can't foster human connection if we have no idea who we are. if the story we believe about ourselves is that we have paths and backpacks, student support, 93% of our graduates employed, and a low student to faculty ratio, we have no idea who we are. All we know is how to put on a gingham shirt and nothing else. We have no fashion. We have no personality. There is no reason for a student to think anything different about us than anyone else. And so we use archetypes to help facilitate moving away from the sea of beige. And the reason we use archetypes is because it's simple, it's relatable, it's memorable. It's a shorthand for a lot of work. It's a shorthand for really powerful tools that allow us to be more creative and more authentic and have a personality. So as you probably know, we use 9 archetypes that sort of represent who our clients might be. We have the yellow innovator, the green explorer, the orange creator, the maroon competitor, so on and so on. And all of these are efforts to fight against that sea of beige. All of these are trying to have a sense of style that isn't a gingham shirt. And what this does is equip us to deliver information in ways that tell prospective students, that tell prospective donors, that tell prospective graduate students, that tell parents, that tell community members who we actually are, that allow us to stand out from a sea of beige. And one thing that's really important in all of this work is to understand that subject matter isn't the same as expression. The problem with 93% of our graduates are employed within 6 months, or we have a low student to faculty ratio, or we offer student support services, isn't those facts themselves. Those are all worth sharing. They are all part of the story. But if that's all you give an audience, if all you tell them is that number, or the fact that you have support services, or that many of your graduates are employed, or that you have a low student to faculty ratio, they have no idea what to make of that. There's no why. There's no style. There is no personality. There is nothing to connect there. So what does it look like to take personality and apply it to a boring beige fact, like a 12-to-1 student to faculty ratio? I'm going to give 2 quick examples. And if you've seen any training that I've ever done on personality before, you have seen me walk through this exercise many times with all 9 of our archetypes. But here I'm just going to do it with 2 that are quite different. So I've made up a not so factual fact because we are not in fact a university. But the not so factual fact is that Carnegie University offers a 12-to-1 student to faculty ratio. Now that could be something that we as this fictional university could just share, put on a billboard, put in a view book, put in a digital ad, and hope that students like it and are attracted to it. Chances are they'll have no idea what to make of it. They will forget it before they're even done reading it. But what if we are purple? How might we share that story differently? How do we make that not just a fact, but an expression of who we are? One way to do that, at Carnegie University, our 12-to-1 student to faculty ratio is more than a number. It's an invitation. Learn with us as we learn from you. Because the best education doesn't happen in massive lecture halls. It happens human to human. So all that does is give some context, a why or a so what behind that number. It's not maybe the greatest writing that I've ever done, to be perfectly clear, but it does give someone reading it an idea of who we are, of what we have to offer, of why we care about offering a 12-to-1 student to faculty ratio. But what if instead we were pink? How might we share that exact same fact through the lens of this archetype instead? You deserve excellence in your education, and at Carnegie University, excellence is exactly what we deliver, down to the smallest detail. Even our 12-to-1 student to faculty ratio is intentional, ensuring every class offers the perfect balance of collaboration with your peers and personal attention from your world-class professors. So again, it's trying to elevate this. Instead of this purple message, where we're really leaning into the value of that personal support and highlighting what that looks like, what that can sound like for this audience. Here, we're leaning into excellence, perfection, intentionality. It's telling a different story, even though it's the exact same fact. So this is really simple. It's very straightforward. This isn't exceptional writing or exceptionally creative, but it is elevating a gingham shirt to have some style. It's at least putting a suit jacket on with it or something. So this is the very baseline of what we do here as we communicate for clients that have done personality work. And we have a number of tools to ensure that this is as easy and straightforward as possible. So I'm going to give you just a few of the resources that are available here. And maybe you know about these already, maybe you don't. But the first one is what we call archetype message guides. So these offer foundational guidance for writing in the voice and style of every single archetype. They contain key characteristics, tone, style, verbs, adjectives, some messaging tips. And I would consider this like a starter kit. It's not a holistic sense of rules. This is not the end-all be-all of communicating this archetype. But as you are starting to just get comfortable and familiar with what it means to communicate in a way that shares an archetype on behalf of a client, this is a great place to start. So there's a link to all of those in the presentation here. Similarly, we offer an archetype imagery guide. There are really two primary aspects, in my opinion, when it comes to expressing personality through creative, and that is copy and imagery. Design absolutely has a place, but in most of our work, there's less room for us to express a lot of personality through design, as opposed to the room that we have to express personality through our photo choices and our word choices. So we also have these imagery guides. What does it look like to select an image that is pink versus an image that is green versus an image that is yellow? This is true across the board for every client who has any one of these archetypes as part of their personality. And again, it's a starter kit. It's meant to sort of show you the difference from archetype to archetype. And again, there's a link in the presentation to get there. But that's really just the start. Those are just baseline foundational resources to help unpack what archetypes look like and sound like creatively at the base level. What we really offer to every client that develops a personality solution, a brand platform through us, is a strategic deliverable. Through a process of much research, through workshops, through pulling in hundreds of stakeholders in many cases, we test and retest and retest and refine what are the three archetypes that define this institution most holistically, most authentically, in a way that is differentiated, that is strategic in the marketplace. There are hundreds of hours of work that go into the development of this by our research and strategy teams. And then our creative team comes in and helps turn all of that work, all of that research into storylines, into dimensions, into aspects of that personality that go so much deeper than the broad understanding of these archetypes. They dig into the specific expression of those archetypes for the client. And you can see all of that work reflected in what we call the strategic deliverable. And you can find that for any client that has a personality solution. You can find it in the RSC folder, in that strategic deliverable folder. There are PDFs in there that you can find this. This is a very long document, but it is absolutely worth your time. There is a ton of incredible information in there, going from all of the data we collected, all of the workshops we went through, the different exercises we walked the client through, all the way through looking at their collateral right now. What are they expressing? What are their competitors expressing? Where are their strategic opportunities in the marketplace? All of that feeds into how we tell this story for the client. And then finally, where that all comes to fruition, especially for those of us who are creatively expressing personalities, and what we call this messaging booklet. And again, that lives in the RC folder and for any client that has a personality solution. And I highly recommend that if you are doing any creative work for any client that has personality, you have this PDF pulled up on your desktop as you are doing this work. There is nothing more important than having this pulled up. This contains the grand narrative that we write that defines the story. This contains the three storylines that unpack each of the archetypes that make up their personality. It contains the specific dimensions that add context and depth and breadth to each of those storylines. And there is so much valuable information from a language perspective to an evidence perspective to just a so what perspective that gives so much context that will make your work so much more valuable if you start using this. But there's way, way more to this. And obviously I can't cover too much in depth in a half an hour. So I went to a number of my art directors who work with personality every day and just asked if there was one piece of advice that you could give to anyone applying personality in any way, what would it be? And so I've collected a few of their thoughts here. So the first here, as you read a client's storylines, look for the values that those storylines express. Search those storylines for the so what that sets the school apart. Write those down. Then as you create, make sure that your creative tells the story of the so what behind every fact. That's a really practical and straightforward way to make the best use of those messaging booklets. And Kate, you're exactly right. Like those are the thing to be using, whether you're designing, choosing photos, or writing for a client with personality. Next, it's usually best to choose one archetype for every piece you create. Sometimes there's going to be an obvious or easy match between the subject you're writing about and that archetype's expression. But don't always choose that easy or obvious route. Often, and I would say almost always, the most interesting and differentiated creative content arises when you express a less obvious archetype. So if you are writing about support services and the client is purple, maybe don't choose purple to write about support services. Maybe choose blue if that's part of their mix, or yellow. How are their support services pushing the envelope? How are they forward thinking? How are they more advanced than any of their competitors? What it does is allows you to tell a story that is so unexpected that you know no one else is telling the story that way. And it's also just as authentically true for the institution, because you know the archetypes that make up that institution, you know their storylines, you know that what you're doing is correct. It's in the right lane. You're not just guessing. You're not just trying to tell a student what they want to hear. You're telling them the truth. And the truth is much more interesting. Third, don't allow a client's personality to limit your creativity. So this is something that as you spend more and more time with personality can become a challenge. You can fall into ruts of like, oh, this client is blue and purple and maroon, and I've done that a dozen times before, so I know what that sounds like. Don't allow that to limit your creativity. Explore ideas that go beyond the obvious things that you've done before. Maybe even allow yourself to push outside into other archetypes, not to use that in the end, but just to see where that brings you. And then refine it, reel it back, realign it with personality as needed. But as you do this more and more, don't allow yourself to fall into ruts just because they're personality ruts. That brings us right back to where we were before personality at all. We just fell into a rut, did the same thing because it was comfortable, because it always worked, never really got much feedback. But the whole point of personality should be to push your creative into the realm of feeling a little out there, a little uncomfortable for you, maybe for the client, but you have the backing for it. You have the proof that it's right, that it's correct, that it's authentic to them. Next, start your creative process by deciding what emotion you want to evoke. This is something that we do all of the time, in signature creative especially. When we're starting a big piece, a big conceptual piece, we'll ask this question: what feeling do I want this to evoke? How do I want the audience of this piece to feel at the end of it? Now, how can I get them there using personality? How can I map that feeling back to the traits that make up this institution? How can I make a student feel FOMO at this institution that is green? Okay, well, I'm going to make them curious. I'm not going to answer every single thing. I'm going to say, you have to come here and see it for yourself. I'm going to raise all of these questions, put little tidbits out there that make them want to be here and so curious about what the answer to that question is, or what that last piece of information is. So I'm going to make them feel FOMO by making them curious, because this client is green through and through. They're all about curiosity. Be mindful of nuance. Personality is complex, it is layered. So as you look at archetypes, it may seem like it's pretty easy to define. There's just 9 buckets and everyone fits in one of these buckets. But as we look at personality of institutions, as those archetypes start to blend across the board, it becomes more and more nuanced and complex. And expressing personality needs to reflect that complexity, because that's where authenticity lies. That's where the truth of the institution lies. You can't define an institution too cleanly, too clearly, too easily, too safely. That's likely not who they actually are. If it feels really safe and really common and really easy, that is not who they are. This is not a black and white solution, but nor is it just a blue solution or just a green solution or just a yellow solution. It is nuanced. It blends together. So live in those words that are found in those storylines, live in those dimensions, the grand narrative, live in that document, that strategic deliverable with insights from our strategists. There is so much nuance in there that can apply to your creative, that can give you a creative spark and allow you to tell a more authentic story. Finally, we represent a huge range of expertise on this call and at this company as a whole. Do not leave that behind. So whether you are working in web and are an SEO expert, or working in digital and understand pay-per-click to the nth degree, you're working in Slate and understand email communications, or wherever you are working, you bring expertise to the table that isn't necessarily reflected in a personality solution, in a storyline, in a messaging guide. This is not meant to replace that. This is meant to augment it. It's meant to give some context to it. So brand personality defines who the institution is, but for example, it doesn't define who the students are, who the audience is. Now we do have darts, which does do that, but for this instance, just thinking about personality, this doesn't define who the students are. You are likely an expert at understanding the needs and wants of prospective students if you have been communicating to undergrad students for any amount of time. Bring that expertise to the table, apply it to your work, even as you're writing in personality. What do students need to hear from us? Okay, how can I share that with them in a way that aligns with who this institution actually is? But don't leave any of that expertise behind. And finally, just a quick couple of examples, and I'm not going to spend much time with this, but I wanted to pull out a couple of pieces for this reason. These are two clients that share exactly two of the three archetypes that make up their personality. Both of these clients are yellow-green and maroon. The only difference is that third archetype. Granger School of Engineering is blue, and Bridgewater is purple. And yet, if you look at the suite of creative work that we did for these clients to reflect that personality, you will see a pretty stark difference, hopefully. You see a difference in boldness, in grit. You see a leaning into here creativity and a little bit more fun, lightness, compassion. And this is how different creative can look even when only one archetype changes from client to client. And even when they share all three archetypes, it can vary so very, very much. And you really have to look into the storylines themselves. What is contained there? What is the story that they're actually telling? It can guide us toward better creative, more interesting creative. And unfortunately, in this case, back to a blue gingham shirt, which I actually just happened to find today as I was looking at this view book. So with that, with the 30 seconds that we have left, I will ask if we have any questions. I think we've got one here.
Yep, we had a really interesting question from Nick asking, are there ways that we can use behavior to help us begin getting insight into the personality of the students so that we can tell the story in ways that are authentic to the brand, but also in the style that the student best identifies with?
Yep. So on one hand, that is exactly describing darts. That is exactly what darts are intended to do. So what darts do is they look at and they interview and speak with students at the institution. They identify the types of students that exist there that are attracted to that institution, and then dig into the why. Why are they most attracted here? What part of who this institution is brings them here? So both who the student is at their core, but also what attracts them to the institution. And that allows us to do darted communications where we can speak directly to the student's motivation in a way that aligns with what the institution brings to the table, who the institution authentically is. Now, when an institution hasn't done darts, it's a little bit more complex. It does require your own expertise in what are students at this stage, perhaps of the funnel, looking for. Now, how can I tell them that story, deliver it in a way that is authentic to the institution? I can't say that when we don't have darts, we don't necessarily have the research to back that up. We won't have the level of specificity, but it absolutely is part of what we should be doing in our work to try to apply this to students and meet them where they are. So hopefully that answers the question a bit.
All right, if there isn't any questions, I want to thank everyone for being here, and thank you, Michael, for sharing. I learned a lot, and I hope you all have a great rest of your day at Inside Out.
Yep. And we will share the deck afterwards for sure.
All right, thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.